Welcome to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Happy Hump Day. It is Wednesday. Hope you guys are getting ready for the day. We saw an absolutely beautiful day yesterday. Majestic's going to give us a look at the forecast in a little bit, but let's take a look at some top stories that we are following for today. Authorities did bring in a man for questioning yesterday in the connection with the Nancy Guthrie case. That's the mother of the Today Show anchor, Savannah Guthrie. The FBI did release him, and he did speak to some outlets, and we're going to play that a little later to hear what he had to say about that questioning. So stick right here with Live Impact News because we will have his interview coming up. Another thing that we will be following today is the Alex Murdaugh appeal. He is going to go in front of the South Carolina Supreme Court, and he'll be saying his arguments and trying to convince the court that he is not a murderer. Now, if you can remember, he was found guilty for killing his wife Maggie and his younger son Paul in June 2021. That's when there were those murders. So he's going in front of the appeals court today. We will be sure to bring you that information and live reports as soon as they do come in. We'll be following that trial all day, so keep it right here on WCNC Plus. You don't want to miss that, as well as we will continue to follow the Nancy Guthrie case. Big case, still in day 11 or 12, I think it is, that they are still searching for her. So let's first go to Majestic Storm, though, because Majestic is going to share this weather with us. Majestic, such a beautiful day yesterday. I took the dogs, threw the ball. They were loving life. Yes. I was loving life. I mean, it was gorgeous.
I had a tank top on. I'm like, this is just odd. This is odd, but it felt so right.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. And this morning, did you have any rain, or what did you experience?
A little bit of rain, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what we'll see for the next couple of hours. And then gradually clearing, not quite as beautiful as yesterday, but I think really by the second half of the day, conditions will get better. So let's get to it. 73 degrees is where we topped off yesterday. Talk about a really nice day. I know many of you were out walking your dogs, riding your bikes, going for a run, maybe just sitting outside and reading a good book. Here's the deal. Today we're starting out with cloudy conditions, and we do have a few stray showers, but everything will eventually clear out by this afternoon. So I think really by the second half of the day, we can expect to see really nice conditions, maybe around the time that we're picking up the kids or as you're coming home after work today. Let's take a look at our satellite and radar. So our forecast is spot on. We were forecasting the opportunity for a few stray showers this morning. This is not really any big deal. We're not talking about any widespread rain, no pockets of heavy rain. It's just a few rain showers here and there. You can see really it's all across the southeast, and we have cloudy skies, mild temperatures, and then some rain showers. A big part of our weather story, yeah, the rain, but did you notice how warm it was this morning when you stepped outside? I go to work so early in the morning, and typically I have to warm up my car. I have to at least have a heavier jacket, and this morning it was nearly 60 degrees heading out the door. It was very mild, and it's really because we didn't cool down a whole lot overnight thanks to a lot of the clouds that we're still holding on to this morning. So switching it over, here's still what we're seeing as far as that rain goes. Not seeing definitely not seeing impactful rain and not widespread. Could we have a little bit of rain for that morning commute? Sure, but like I mentioned, it is not going to last much longer. Now this is for the Charlotte metro area. You can see rain showers at about a 20% chance through the first half of our day, and then that will drop off. A few other things that we're looking at other than the nice gradually clearing skies today will be tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday. We're looking at a mild day, a little bit cooler, but overall should be back on track to really seasonal and nice conditions to wrap up our work week. Right now, if you are gearing up to head out the door, it's 62 degrees. I know a lot of people who love to wake up and you like to maybe get some exercise in first thing in the morning. 62 degrees in Charlotte. You don't need those layers like you typically would on an early February morning. 44 up in the mountains, so even seeing very mild temperatures up in the higher elevations. And our average high temperature for this time of the year, 56 degrees. Right now, we're at 62 and we're just getting started. So a very abnormally warm morning. Throughout the rest of the day today, this is our hourly forecast. So this is what this afternoon will look like. Like I mentioned, this is when we'll see little sunshine starting to peek through. And again, temperatures continuing to get a little warmer. So mid to upper 60s today. Not quite as sunny and warm as yesterday, but honestly, no big complaints here. Now, as we're heading into the afternoon, here's about 1 o'clock. We should be done with the rain. I don't think we'll have any more rain on our radar when it comes to really our midday show. I'll be covering that during the forecast from 11 to noon today. I suspect that the rain will be all over with, and then we'll prepare you for a really nice second half of the day. Now, this is Thursday, heading out the door tomorrow. We'll wake up to clear skies and cold temperatures, going from 73 degrees yesterday for our high temperature, and then tomorrow morning we're back on track to freezing temperatures heading out the door. So back to reality we go. At least it's going to be beautiful, clear and crisp, and then heading into the remainder of Thursday and into Friday, conditions look just fine. Overnight lows tonight, not going to be nearly as warm as where we were this morning. I mean, we were right around 60 degrees this morning heading out the door, sending those kids off to the school bus stop. Very, very mild. And again, like I mentioned, it's because of the clouds that we were holding on to overnight. Those morning time clouds, remember, they act like a blanket, so it doesn't really allow the atmosphere to cool like it would if we had nice clear skies. But tomorrow morning, with clear conditions, be prepared for 20s and 30s heading out the door. Tomorrow, though, our afternoon highs still not bad, still above our average, rising back into the 60s. We'll take it. And if you have any plans for the rest of our work week and into the first half of our weekend, of course, don't forget it's Valentine's weekend. The first half is going to be okay. I think on Valentine's Day itself, also going to be cloudy, but I think it will be dry. Temperatures not too unbearably cold either. And then Sunday is going to be the day where we will have some rain. So here's our long rain futurecast. I want to focus on the weekend. So Saturday, we're staying clear from the rain. The system has slowed down a little bit, so that's in favor if you do have any plans for your Valentine's Day. Even for Valentine's night, there's 6 o'clock. Again, Saturday is the day. But watch what happens overnight and into Sunday morning. That's when the rain really starts to ramp up. So if you had plans for your Sunday, maybe you were heading out to church, you're wanting to go to brunch, maybe you were really wanting to go play some golf or do something outside, Sunday is not the day. This is going to be basically a washout day with persistent rain from start to finish, and then eventually that system pushes off to the east of us. Now, how much rain are we actually talking? Honestly, with Sunday's rain alone, we're looking at least 1 to 2 inches of rain. And remember, we do need it. So plan for mainly indoor things to do for your Sunday. The good news is the rain doesn't stick around for long. Just really one rainy day, and the next week looks nice. Our 3-day forecast, 60 degrees by tomorrow with mostly sunny skies, so still above our average. And then Friday morning, 34 degrees, so another chilly start to the day, a very seasonal, average looking type of day. Friday waking up to 30s, and then for our afternoon highs, right about 56 degrees. That's spot on for where we should be. Saturday, 62, so a little bit warmer and a good mix of sun and clouds. And then remember, Sunday is when things really start to change. Here's a Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Nice and mild. Today, 67 degrees. Now, it's no 73 degrees with sunshine, but we're not complaining about that. Gonna be cold heading out the door tomorrow, and then temperatures rebound pretty nice, low 60s. Again, I'm not really seeing any big concerns until Saturday or until Sunday. And even then, it's not really a concern. It's just more of an inconvenience. We're not concerned about any storms, no severe weather. It's just kind of a rainy washout type of day. The good news is, like I mentioned, we'll get through that rain on Sunday. And then next week, you might even be looking forward to a Monday. That's always nice because look at these temperatures. Mid 60s Monday and Tuesday, and even beyond that. I think next week we could have another 70-degree day. So all in all, Megan, I think things are shaping up to be pretty nice.
I mean, I absolutely love that. Even if it's a little lower, I'm still happy because it's not going to be a snowstorm. So that's wonderful.
Yes, anything is uphill from here.
No,
after that.
It really is. It really is. Majestic, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, keep it right here on Live Impact News because coming up in about 2 minutes, we're going to hear from that person who was detained by the FBI, I should say, for the Nancy Guthrie case. So we're going to hear from them in about 2 minutes. Keep it right here on WCNC Plus. Welcome back to WCNC Plus. You're watching live Impact News on this beautiful Wednesday. So we did tell you about the Nancy Guthrie's latest investigation, what's going on with that investigation. And we do know that a man was detained yesterday. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has confirmed he was released. The man who was identified is Carlos Palazuelos, and he told Telemundo that his house in Rio Rico, south of Tucson, was searched as part of that investigation. So we are going to take a listen because he did speak with several outlets about what he was asked, what kind of happened. And I do want to say that 3 minutes ago, NBC did release this. They said authorities have no news conference scheduled today to update the public on ongoing investigations. And if you can remember, this is day 11 now that there has been no sign of Nancy Guthrie. So investigators continue to work around the clock to figure out what happened to her and where she is. So let's take a listen to NBC News right now.
I was the one that was pulled over at the traffic stop.
In rapid developments this morning, we're hearing from a man who says he was the one detained for questioning in the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and that he lives at the southern Arizona property state and federal authorities searched overnight. They would only say after the search that the investigation is ongoing. The man says he delivers packages in the Tucson area, but had nothing to do with Guthrie's disappearance.
All I know is that they show my in-law a picture of somebody wearing a mask or something, and they supposedly, it looked like my eyes.
The Pima County Sheriff's Office earlier said they detained someone for questioning in the case in a Tuesday traffic stop south of Tucson, but would not comment on whether or not that person was released. It all comes after the FBI made public this disturbing video of a masked person wearing gloves and carrying a gun and a backpack outside Nancy Guthrie's home the night she went missing more than 10 days ago. The FBI director who visited the Tucson Command Center yesterday and shared this photo confirmed investigators are looking at persons of interest, but no one in law enforcement has said whether the person brought in for questioning is the same one in this doorbell camera video that the FBI had been working with private sector companies to recover.
And then go into their systems and actually excavate material that people would think would normally be deleted and no one would look for.
The images reveal what appears to be facial hair around the person's mouth and what looks like distinctive eyebrows through the mask's eye holes. You can also see the person's clothing and body movements as they've tampered with and covered up the camera. Today, show anchor Savannah Guthrie shared the video from her mother's doorbell camera, writing, "Someone out there recognizes this person. We believe she is still out there. Bring her home." In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
That's from Tucson, Arizona. And like I said, no news conference today by the Pima County Sheriff's Office, but we will continue to look for updates. If anything does break today, be sure to keep it right here because we're going to be tracking that all day long. Another story that we are tracking right now is that Alec Murdaugh appeal. So he is going to be in the Supreme Court, the South Carolina Supreme Court, and he's going to be arguing about his innocence in the murder of his wife and his younger son. So we're going to take it over to South Carolina right now, and Christy Calcano, she was live outside the courthouse this morning, so she's going to give us more on what's going on there today.
Hey guys, good morning. Christy Calcagno alongside News 19's Kiki Gushu here. We're kind of be breaking down exactly what is happening in this case. We do know there is going to be multiple defenses there for Alec Murdaugh as well as the state going against this. Now, as you just mentioned, that the doors will open at 8:30. Trial begins at 9:30, but you can actually already see, let's go ahead and take a quick little step back. You can already see the line of press as well as other people who just wanted to get a seat inside that courtroom. They are currently lining up and getting ready almost about an hour before these doors open. So Kiki, I know you've also been following this case. Basically, what is at stake right now, and break down how we got here today.
Yeah, Yeah, Christy, so in 2021, Paul and Maggie Murdaugh were murdered at their home at the Moselle Estate in Hampton County, in Colleton County, South Carolina, in Hampton. Now, from there, Alec Murdaugh, the father of Paul and the husband of Maggie, was convicted of murder at a trial in 2023. That trial lasted almost 6 weeks, and since then, he has been appealing for issues he say happened in the first trial. One of them is financial crimes, the allowance of his financial crimes into the trial, and the other is allegations of jury tampering by Becky Hill, the then clerk of court there in Colleton County.
Yeah, those are going to be the two things that the defense is going to argue during this, and then you have Creighton Waters, who is going to be representing the state, coming up in just a little bit. But here's something that we do want to mention to you all watching here this morning, is that this is not a new trial. This is an appeals hearing. So basically what we're hearing right now is that there is no new testimony, right?
There is no new testimony. There is no new evidence. Actually, the briefings that will be read here today have already been published. So the 5 justices inside the Supreme Court are already in the know about what they're going to be hearing today. They've studied pages and pages of testimony. They know this trial like the back of their hand, and they are ready to ask questions. That's going to be a big part of today, is going to be the justices asking questions and really trying to get to the bottom of if these 2 allegations warrant a new trial for Alec Murdaugh.
And then that's the point that we're going to be waiting for, to see if there is going to be a new trial. And then the big question is going to be what happens next. We are hearing that we're going to be hearing a little bit later on today, after this hearing, from both sides to kind of get some reactions onto this and basically what is going to happen next. But to break down what we're going to be seeing in the courtroom, a lot of this is only 20 minutes. In fact, it's 20 minutes on each of those cases that we're hearing, and then it's going to be 20 minutes on the state side, and then all of that, like you mentioned, is really going to be involving questioning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one interesting thing is that during those 20 minutes, those questions count as time. So these justices can interrupt at any point and ask questions, and that actually takes up some of the time of the argument. So it'll be really interesting to see what their questions are and how that kind of shows what their thinking is along the lines of this hearing.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on, of course, and only like about an hour and a half inside that courtroom. But again, Kiki's going to be over there inside the courtroom. There's already a media frenzy behind us. There's already a bunch of people who are lining up for their live shots as well, and they'll be getting us the scoop on everything that you need to know. So we're going to be standing out here outside the Supreme Court. Kiki's going to be inside, and we're going to bring you guys the very latest. We'll send it back over to you guys in the studio.
So, like I said, a huge day here on WCNC Plus on Live Impact News. We have a lot going on. You're going to want to keep it right here, because we're going to be following that appeal all day long. They will be in and out of the courtroom, so we'll be checking back in with them very soon. We're going to take a quick break right here on Live Impact News, but keep it right here on WCNC Plus. Happy Wednesday, everybody. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for being here. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time now is 9:26, so great time to turn on this channel or app or whatever. YouTube. Whatever. We're on literally everywhere, so just keep it on. Everywhere. Okay. Right now, Juliana O'Rourke with the Better Business Bureau is joining me. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And you know, when she's in studio, you know she's talking about scams.
Yes, all the scams. Trying to educate our consumers.
Yes.
We don't want people to be scared. We want you to be educated.
Yes. Okay. So really right now is the time, if you can believe it, for taxes.
I know. We're already
Wild.
like halfway through February. Valentine's Day is around the corner.
Yeah.
Taxes are going to be due before you know it. And so, of course, as you know, anytime something like this is going on, we have scammers. And so tax season is a big time for scammers. And we want to make sure people know kind of what to look out for as they're getting ready to file their taxes and they're getting all their documents together, because there's quite a variety of different types of tricks and tactics that scammers like to use.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of like new tax stuff coming in right now. There's like the new child tax. There's so many things that are new. So it can really throw a lot of people off, especially with these scammers, right?
Yeah, and taxes in general, I think, can be really confusing for people. You only have to do it once a year. A lot of times, maybe you hire somebody, or if you try to do it yourself, you're still like, look, I'm filling in the boxes where they tell me to put these numbers. Don't really understand what I'm doing. But like I said, we want to educate people so they know what types of scams to look out for. And so kind of first and foremost, one of the biggest things that we see is that scammers will approach you and, you know, they have these high pressure tactics and they say, hey, you know, you owe these back taxes. You need to pay them now. They're really aggressive, and the IRS doesn't reach out to you that way. They will first and foremost send you a letter in the mail. If they ever do follow up after that, it could potentially be through a phone call, but you'll never hear from them unless you actually get a letter first. So we just want to make sure people know, hey, you know, this is happening. And if you feel like somebody is calling you from the IRS, first of all, that's a red flag. And second of all, if they're very pressuring, demanding, getting aggressive, that's another tactic that they like to use because it makes people very uncomfortable. And so, you know, hey, take a step back, take a minute, actually reach out to the IRS if you're actually concerned. But most of us know, hey, we filed our taxes, we did the things we're supposed to do, so I don't know why these people are calling me.
Yeah, exactly. And also, too, you know, with people expected to get more money in the refunds, that can be something too, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I know in the last couple of years, you know, there's been these relief checks that people have received in the past, and so they will still sort of play on that as well, and they might call you and say, hey, we need your information because we have this refund for you. And then that's when you're kind of like, really? Why would I have that? Or, you know, but it's essentially just a ploy because they want to get your information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What else should people look out for?
Yeah, so we always encourage people to file their taxes as soon as possible because people can also steal your social security number and file taxes on your behalf. And then oftentimes people don't even know this has happened until they get a letter in the mail from the IRS after they've filed their taxes actually themselves. And the IRS says, hey, you know, 2 tax returns have been filed under this number. And so that's when you start to get into identity theft, which can be very lengthy and messy to fix and correct, and it can take years to get that taken care of. So we always encourage people to file your taxes as soon as possible, as soon as you have all your documentation, so that way it doesn't really give somebody else an opportunity to do that. You can also get a specific PIN number so that every year you file your taxes, you have to put in that PIN number. Now that is your responsibility to keep track of that PIN. Typically the IRS sends you a new PIN number in the mail every December, but basically that's an extra step of protection. It's almost like a multi-factor authentication type, if you will, where then you're putting in that PIN number when you're filing those taxes as well, in addition to all of that information. And scammers would not have that PIN, hopefully, so you know, you'd be a little bit more protected that way.
Yeah, that's really good information.
Yeah.
Where else can they find information from you?
Yeah, so all this information is on bbb.org. We put tons of information, tons of articles. Each of these scams that I've mentioned kind of has its own section. We have a whole hub related to tax, specifically scams. So check it out.
Great. Yeah. Also, I'm going to ask you a personal question. Are you a procrastinator with your taxes?
I try not to be.
I knew you wouldn't be.
I try not to be, but it kind of depends on the year, and then it also depends, like, Sometimes I've hired a person to do them for me just because I am lazy.
Yes.
I'm gonna be full of, you know.
Yeah,
you get all your documents together and you're
absolutely.
like, I'm not messing with it.
Yeah.
Other times I'm like, okay, put your big old pants on, get the TurboTax up. You can do it yourself. It's not that difficult. It kind of just depends. There's been years where I did freelance work on the side. That gets a little bit more intense.
Sure.
You know, you really want somebody to look over that for you and help you get the best benefit that you can, tax credits, things like that. But if it's just straightforward, I've worked for one company, you know, I don't really have a lot of deductions, things like that, then I may do it myself. But, you know, it's always nice to have a professional look at things for you. To
Absolutely.
Sort of, you know, help you as best as you can. What about you?
Oh, I'm such a procrastinator with it, and I do it myself.
Okay.
I put like these fake glasses on. I make it a whole thing because I have to make it fun for me. If not, then I'm never going to do it.
And I will say too, like once you've done it yourself in the past, if you use the same platform, it'll auto import a lot of your stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's not so bad. So it really just depends on how challenging and difficult your tax situation is and like all the documents that you need. And
I know.
most of them you're kind of just step by step following along. So it really just depends what you're the most comfortable with, because also when you hire a, you know, tax consultant, attorney, whomever, and they're the ones submitting the tax refund on your behalf, if something's wrong, they're going to go back to that person versus you. So if you file them yourself and maybe you aren't sure, have questions, and say you still submit them, if something's wrong, they're coming back to you versus the person that you hired. So it just kind of depends, like I said, how difficult your tax situation might be, you know, how many documents do you have, what kind of credits are you trying to get, and that really kind of helps to determine what you should do.
Great. Yeah. Juliana Rorick, always great to see you. Also, too, the most stylish person ever. I mean, if you see her outfit, it's good. It's good. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And we'll be right back on WCNC Plus. All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We are actually going to go to Washington, D.C. because members of the Democratic Women's Caucus are there. They are on Capitol Hill right now, and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein are talking right now, and they're talking ahead of Attorney General Pam Bondi's appearance. She's going to be appearing in front of the House Judiciary Committee in about 30 minutes. So let's take a listen in.
Kept redactions that protect the powerful and expose the powerless. But our trauma wasn't delayed. Our pain was not postponed. And our trust has been shattered. So I will say what many survivors feel. Pam Bondi and the Justice Department failed us repeatedly across administrations, across political lines, across decades, and the people who had the authority to intervene chose silence, secrecy, and self-preservation and called it justice. I'm here to make sure no one in the Justice Department, no matter their title, rewrites history or escapes accountability. And so today, I'm asking survivors, allies, lawmakers, and citizens to refuse silence, demand oversight, demand transparency, demand a Justice Department that protects the vulnerable instead of the powerful. Stand with us, speak with us, and do not look away. Accountability will not come unless we insist on it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please welcome Representative Nancy Mace.
Hold on one second. I just want to let members of the media know that because the judiciary hearing is starting soon, some of the survivors are going to go take their seat right now. But we are going to continue this press conference because we have a few more important statements to make. And Representative Press.
Representative Nancy Mace.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. For thousands of years, women have been considered second-class citizens. Back to the book of Genesis, chapter 24, when Dinah was raped by a prince, they tried to negotiate a deal to sweep it under the rug until her brothers took up swords. And today, the Epstein survivors who are here, advocating on their behalf, want America and the world to know they are no longer second-class citizens. And women in this country should never be treated like second-class citizens. And their stories are truth. Their stories are real. They're vulnerable. It is traumatic, and it is lifelong trauma for each and every one of them. I have lost all faith in the justice system today, but I have not lost faith in the stories of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And I want the survivors to know that the world is watching. And we must show them what we're made of. We're made of the courage of the Epstein survivors. We're made of the bravery of the Epstein survivors. We're made of the truth of the Epstein survivors. And we're here today to demand justice for the Epstein survivors. Because their stories are our stories. There are judges all across the country, all across the United States of America, who are revealing the names and the identities and the residents, the addresses, the contact information of rape victims everywhere. Rape victims who come forward and name names are sued by their rapists. This is happening not just to them, but to women everywhere. In my case, I went to the law enforcement over 2 years ago. Evidence on a silver platter. Today, not a single person arrested, not a single person in jail. And so the days of the cover-up are over, and I am begging the media, don't make this partisan. This is about the victims. And this will go down, the Epstein saga and Maxwell, this will go down as one of the greatest cover-ups in American history. And I'm going to stand with the Epstein survivors until my last breath to ensure that the rich and powerful do not get away with this. Because America's system is a two-tiered system of justice. There's one for the rich and powerful, and there's one for the rest of us. And those days are over, and I want the rich and powerful, the princes, the princesses, the prime ministers, the former presidents to know your days are numbered. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you.
So I just want to acknowledge that who were just before us are grown women
But it's not hard for me when I look at them to see a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old. We're talking about children who were groomed, preyed upon, exploited, raped, trafficked, dreams permanently deferred, bodies violated, and spirits permanently bruised. In Virginia's book, Nobody's Girl, it's titled that because she felt she belonged to no one, that no one cared. These survivors have been used, abused, and discarded. Jeffrey Epstein can rot in hell, and Ghislaine Maxwell can follow suit, and all of those co-conspirators and accomplices deserve to be named and shamed. Because as Virginia once said, if we don't know who they are, the monsters are still out there harming people. So I thank you for being here today. This is a season of call a thing a thing. So I have to be direct. Survivors gathered here today, I'm so grateful for their courage and leadership, and equally devastated and furious about what they have endured. You were failed by so many powerful people that could have protected your childhood. You were failed by a government that ignored your cries for decades. Truly an institutional betrayal. We're fighting with every bone in our bodies for you. The files that have been released have further detailed a vivid picture of depraved behavior and dehumanization, violent violations, hurt and harm. No person, no child should ever endure. It is an abuse and harm that changes you on a cellular level for the rest of your life. It is a lifetime sentence. And together we are fighting for every survivor carrying visible and invisible scars, burdened by shame. Let me be clear, the shame is not yours to carry. Shame on the people that abused you. Shame on the government that failed you. The shame is not yours to carry. And we must meet your courage with real action. And again, although I know our survivors have left to take their seats at the judiciary hearing, I'm speaking to all the Epstein survivors, but to all survivors for whom the Epstein survivors are a proxy for. This moment requires that we meet their courage with real action. These powerful abusers have been protected by institutions that are more concerned with the wealthy and well-connected than centering survivors. The Department of Justice must continue to release files, and they must correct course as we've demanded from the beginning. The identities of survivors in these files must be redacted and protected. And this can't end with the release of the files. We must see thorough investigations followed by swift accountability for all that enabled and incited this abuse. Words are important, but actions are what matter now. And that's why we will not yield. Thank you for being here today, and our work continues.
Good morning, everyone. I am Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, and I am so proud to represent New Mexico's 1st Congressional District and to stand with the survivors and to be joined by my colleagues from the Oversight, Judiciary, and other committees of jurisdiction in this case. While the survivors have left to attend the Pam Bondi hearing that starts in just a few moments, we will stay for a few extra moments to answer questions of the press. You see behind me members of the Oversight Committee that have been engaged in a months-long bipartisan investigation in the Epstein case. Let me begin by saying one thing. Believe the survivors.
That's right.
We are being asked every single day to name names. They have named the names. They are in the files. Believe the survivors. Believe your eyes. Believe what you are reading. They have named the names, and for the last 20 years, justice has not been served here in these United States.
That's right.
20 years ago, in 2007, the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI drew up a 56-page indictment that included 32 counts of federal crimes against Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators, and 1 year later dropped the case. In the years that ensued, hundreds and potentially thousands of additional victims of sexual violence were allowed to happen because the United States government failed to act. Today, that same injustice is continuing right now here in the halls of Congress, the halls of the Department of Justice, and yes, in the halls of the White House. Late last night, I posted an FBI file that names names. That is the FBI's file. Those are the names of rich and powerful people, including presidents, that the FBI itself was tracking in the Epstein investigation. That is based on victims naming names. So believe the victims. Believe your eyes. The names have been named. They are in the public domain. They are in the files. And we will tell you unequivocally, we will keep naming names. While we do, as members of Congress, have access to these unredacted files, let us be clear, the law is clear that these files should never have been redacted the way that they are currently. It is very clear that the United States government is involved in an active cover-up and protecting the allies of the President and the Department of Justice, and that active members of this administration have lied under oath to the American people and to this Congress, and we will hold you accountable. Now, it has already been stated multiple times this morning that governments across the world are acting. Governments across the world are demanding accountability. People are rising up. Survivors are coming forward. People are naming names, and names are being taken down. Yet here in the United States, the injustice that has spanned now 2 decades is continuing because of an active cover-up by the president himself. So what we ask all of you, the American people, members of the press, the eyes of the world who are watching us here in the United States, believe the survivors. Yes. Have courage. Do the right thing. Because the survivors have already had the courage to say those names over and over again. And they have more courage and guts than half of the people in the buildings behind us and most of the people in this town. But we want you to know that we will not let this injustice stand. We will stand here every day with the survivors. We will not stop. We will look through every file. We will follow every lead, and justice will be served. And to every survivor out there, here in the United States and across the world, the millions of survivors, girls, women, boys, people who are watching, we know the eyes of the world are on us. We stand with you. We are fighting for you. You are not alone. And whether you have come forward or not, we want you to know that we are fighting for you. We see you, and we will fight for justice.
That's right. And
so with that, we will open it up for questions. And some of us are going to head over to the Judiciary Committee, where Pam Bondi has to answer some very serious questions. Do we have any questions from the press? Yes.
Several members of the British political class have lost their positions, as you've mentioned, as a result of being associated with the Epstein files. Do you think that people in the Trump administration, like Secretary Lutnick, should lose their job as a result of misrepresenting their relationship with Epstein?
Absolutely. It is very clear that Howard Lutnick lied to the American people about the nature of his relationship, and that he repetitively lied, including potentially perjuring himself yesterday right behind me in the United States Senate. We have the files. We know the nature of the relationship. We know that there are multiple witnesses who shared information with the FBI about Howard Lutnick's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It's time for him to stand down.
I have one thing. What message does it send about our country to our kids when people in Europe are being held accountable, but people in the United States are not being held accountable for the same exact situation? So we have to hold people in this administration accountable, no matter how powerful they are.
Yeah.
Can I ask Emily?
And this is Suhas Subramanian from Virginia.
Over time, we've heard more about the involvement of the man formerly known as Prince Andrew. We've had statements from Buckingham Palace and from William and Kate saying their thoughts are with the victims. I just wonder what your thoughts are. Jeffrey Epstein was a man who was invited to the palace. He was a Balmoral estate, the royal estate. He was a man who was in the midst of the royal family. What would you say to King Charles with regard to what he should do as the head of the royal household? Should he get involved? Should he publicly answer questions? What action would you like to see?
Well, I'm humbled that you would ask a mere citizen congresswoman from New Mexico to comment on what is happening with the royal family. But let me just say this generally. When you examine what the FBI and the United States investigated of Jeffrey Epstein for more than a decade, it is very clear that his crimes included not just sex trafficking, but international money laundering, potential influence peddling of state secrets to foreign governments. We still don't understand the nature of his intelligence work, and it is not only a stain on the reputation of all world leaders that there are leaders that were in association with Epstein and his sexual crimes, but it's also a national security risk. And I think that what has unfolded in the UK over the last couple of weeks is that Jeffrey Epstein was a national security risk to the UK, and it's important that the individuals who may have either intentionally or inadvertently shared information be held accountable.
Yeah, I think in terms of King Charles, I mean, the family's reputation is on the line right now. And so I hope they do the right thing by letting authorities hold Andrew accountable for anything he did. I still want to continue to see if Andrew will come and testify before our committee. But certainly the victims have said that justice has many forms, and one of them is the reputations and titles and power of many of these people who were involved in these crimes. And so their reputation is on the line right now.
Yeah, is that a question that you have, given that Epstein was amongst the royal family via Andrew for so long? Is that a question that you have, perhaps? Did the wider royal family know more than we know? No more than they're letting on?
It's hard for me to say. I think that's why we want all the documents to know exactly what evidence there is of any sort of knowledge of the crimes.
And I think especially when you have a peek behind the redactions and some of the email correspondence, Jeffrey Epstein had a vast network of leaders, businessmen, others that he was involved with globally, and it's not necessarily indicative that he was doing work for governments or that others in the government were involved, but it's clear that his influence peddling and his business scheme involved maintaining those kinds of relationships. So I think at this point it's unclear that there's any evidence that points to broader participation outside of the individuals who've so far been named. Are there other questions? Yes, go ahead.
My name is Christine Hillier and I'm with Capitai Governance Lab. And have you seen any patterns of this overlapping with structural defects within our own CPS and family court systems?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that we met extensively, a number of members and survivors yesterday to talk about what comes next. And I want to make clear that both the members of Congress who are supporting the survivors and the survivors see this not as just a moment of accountability in this case, but about changing the culture and trajectory of violence against women and sexual violence here in the United States and around the world. And it's very clear that our justice system is not a trauma-informed justice system. The way in which the justice system is not only covering up the case now, but re-traumatizing and putting victims at risk is a part of the problem. But there are many laws that need to be changed. In addition to the bill that was introduced yesterday by Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez, there's a whole slate of legislation around violence and sexual violence around women, dealing with state statutes around the statute of limitations on these issues, and building a system that not only believes survivors but supports them. And so part of our goal over the coming months is going to be to lift up survivor stories at more length so that they can tell their stories, so that young women especially and vulnerable people know what it looks like so they can help protect themselves, and so that we can change the laws to protect survivors in a better way. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
You're watching Live Impact News right there. Epstein survivors on Capitol Hill speaking before Attorney General Pam Bondi does go in front of a committee of lawmakers to talk a little bit about the Epstein files. That is what is expected today. Lawmakers expected to ask her questions on that. We're going to take a quick break right now, but keep it right here on Live Impact News. You're watching Live Impact News right here on WCNC Plus. We're going to head over to Columbia, South Carolina, where Alec Murdaugh's legal team is talking about his case for an appeal. So let's listen in.
Amendment violation like Becky Hill committed in this case. And let me say this. I know my time's up. We spent months getting ready for this trial, weeks, 6 weeks trying this trial, more months finding jurors to talk to and find out if the court could talk to her, could talk to them. We had more hearings, more briefing. Nobody wants to do this again less than we do. But that's not the issue. It's not how much trouble it's going to be. It's what is Alec Murdaugh guaranteed to under the Sixth Amendment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Ms. Waters. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Chief Justice Kittredge, and may it please the court. I'll start out with my 5 minutes, and I'll start by saying I also agree that oaths are important. That's something I always talk about with juries and the importance of their oath. And I think that that's also recognized very strongly in this court's case law and case law of other jurisdictions, and that this court has expressed that jurors are presumed to take that oath very seriously, that they're presumed to be people of ordinary firmness, that they are not presumed to blow with the winds lens of every opinion that swirls around them. And so I think that's an important place to start when we look at this particular case. And when we look at this particular case, what we are talking about is what Justice Toll described as a few fleeting comments. And in the face of that, we have to consider a 6-week trial with almost 90 witnesses, with almost 600 exhibits, with Judge Newman, with the entire prosecution team, with the entire defense team, and all of that presentation over 6 weeks. And to get there and to do what ultimately is the analysis is we have to assume that at some point prior to deliberation, during the presentation of evidence, with all of that going on, some jurors like, well, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do, but Miss Becky said, you know, watch his body language, and that made the difference. And I would submit to you that that is simply not a finding that is justified in this evidence. It's not a finding that's justified under what we know about jurors, and it's not a finding that's justified by what the jurors said in this particular case. Now, to sort of detail my analysis in my free 5 minutes that I have here before the questioning comes, is we have 606, and we've got two issues. We've got number one is what happened, and then we've got number two, which is how do we analyze that particular issue. And when we start with what happened, that is obviously a credibility and fact-finding effort by the trial court. This court is very clear that the trial court, because this is not like a trial, this is a procedure that is in the discretion of the trial court, and ultimately any credibility findings, fact findings, this court respectfully would defer to. And so to determine that, what exactly happened? And this court ultimately credited the 11 jurors. And so what do we have with those 11 jurors? We have one juror saying that Ms. Hill said this is an epic day and the defendant is going to testify. All right. And then we have another juror who says watch his body language. And beyond that, the court clearly did not credit Juror Z, and I'll get into more about that, but there's plenty of the support in the record why the court could not credit what Juror Z said. Juror Z was ambivalent. Her answers were all over the place. None of the other jurors heard all those egregious statements. She couldn't even remember all of these egregious statements when she was on the stand. She said, I don't remember them. All of these things that really would take this analysis into a different level, she didn't remember. So when we boil it down to what happened, we're talking about epic day. All right, epic day, everybody in the courtroom knew it was an epic day. That is not news to anyone. Everybody knew it was an epic day. It is rare for a defendant to testify. That on its face is a neutral comment. That is not necessarily a comment one way or the other. And if anything, we've seen where instances of a jury in deliberation considering the fact that a defendant didn't testify, saying, you know, he must be guilty because he didn't testify. That's actually been an inference that goes more in favor of the defendant than against him, the fact that he's testifying. But again, it's rare that a defendant will testify. That ultimately is a neutral statement as well. And then watch his body language. Again, that is what was found, not don't get fooled by his comments or anything like that. That was not what was found by the trial court, just a neutral comment of watch his body language. And so that is the facts, the three facts that we have to ultimately assess. So when we move on from there, then the analysis is how do we analyze that? And first of all, we have the discussion of whether or not there's a presumption of prejudice. Justice Toll, of course, found, based on this court's clear case law, that there was not. But I would agree, I would submit to you that not only because of the alternative findings, but just because of a general analysis that regardless of who had the burden, that presumption of prejudice was overcome in this particular case. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But I think ultimately the legal analysis, whichever way you go, I don't think is going to be dispositive because of the relatively non-egregious nature of these comments. They are nothing like the comments that were in the cases that have led to reversal. So let's talk a little bit about more of the findings that were there. In looking at the evidentiary hearing that was done, we had, of course, Ms. Hill testify, and the judge found that she was not completely credible. We had Ms. Rhonda testify. The court did not credit that testimony because Ms. Rhonda conceded over and over again that she absolutely heard nothing whatsoever of any.
Mr. Waters,
yes,
I
ma'am.
want to stop you right there
Yep.
since your 5 minutes is up and talk a little bit more about Jersey.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying these are innocuous comments, not to be fooled, and look at his actions, look at his movements. The court seems to believe Jersey when she says in her affidavit and when she testifies that these comments were made to her. However, she goes on in her affidavit to say, not to be fooled, which I understood to mean Mr. Murdoch would lie when he testified. Look at his actions, look at his movements, which I understood to mean that he was guilty. The juror is testifying in her affidavit that the effect on her was significant. Why can the court, how can the court find that certain comments that she made, take them and incorporate them in the order, but not believe what she says about the effect?
Well, two things about that. I think that, first of all, Justice Toll did not credit any of the egregious comments that she didn't even remember herself on the stand, such as "won't get fooled." The only comment that was credited was what was testified by Juror P, which is watch his body language.
And let me, and I want you to finish your answer, but I want to ask you this. So far as the comments are concerned, are we limited, is this court limited to only the comments that are included in Judge Toll's order? Or are we able to consider all the comments that are included in the affidavits, even the egg juror affidavit?
Well, what I would say to that is the case law is clear that the trial court has the discretion to conduct this hearing and ultimately make credibility findings, which under typical appellate law this court would defer to. And so my argument to that is if you look at Justice Toll's order, both her oral order and her written order, she credited the 11 and did not credit Juror Z and did not give any credence to 741, the alternate, and or the egg lady, which of course did not testify. Now there was on page 808 of the record where she says, I think we've got in terms of what she says, Ms. Hill says, and what Ms. Hill says she says. That's on page 808 of the record and talking about the egg lady juror. But ultimately, I would submit that this court in appellate review does need to defer to credibility and factual findings of the trial court. And the trial court only found the 11 credible. And
well, then help us understand the ostensible inconsistency when the trial court finds portions of Juror Z's affidavit credible and just carves out and doesn't deal with the part that dovetails with the alternate juror's testimony, which is far more prejudicial.
Sure.
How do we do that?
Well, so we're looking for, I would submit from an appellate court's standard of review, we're looking for support in the record for those findings. And so when you look at Juror Z, okay, and first of all, you look at the 11, which she did credit, and none of those 11 heard any of these other egregious comments or anything like that. None of
what do we do about the order that doesn't even mention that Juror Z did in fact testify about the comment, don't let the defense confuse you?
Well, I think that when you look at the order in her specific paragraph on Juror Z, what she says is that Juror Z was ambivalent, and ultimately, as she goes through the analysis of what Juror Z says, she's not crediting that testimony. And again, I think there's support in the record for that.
There may be, and that may carry the day for you.
Right.
Assume that we find that that statement was made. Do you still have a path to victory?
That don't be fooled?
At the end of the state's case, before the defense presents its case, the statement was made, do not be confused, do not be misled by defense and its counsel.
Right. Well, I would say, and this is like everything in this, it is a question of degree, okay? And there could, if the clerk had come in there and held a gun to their heads and said, you better vote guilty or I'm going to shoot you all, I probably wouldn't even be arguing that's not structural error, okay? But everything is a question of degree. I'm not going to concede that if those statements were credited and are part of the review, that our path to victory is not harder. But I think you have to look at that in the context of this entire trial and when those particular statements were made.
Right. And I think context is important too. We all can cherry pick some of these that are on the surface innocuous. Epic day, big day. And when viewed in isolation, they don't move the needle, arguably. But when those seemingly innocuous statements are considered in the aftermath of the originating statement, not to be confused and misled by the defense, those initial innocuous statements take on a very nefarious message.
I could not argue other.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Right now, we are in South Carolina watching Alec Murdaugh appeals case. Right now, you can see the defense is being asked questions by the South Carolina Supreme Court. We're going to take a quick break right here on WCNC Plus, but keep it right here. We're going to come right back to this after a 2-minute break. Welcome back to Live Impact News on this beautiful Wednesday. You're watching WCNC Plus. We are going to head back to Columbia, South Carolina, where South Carolina Supreme Court judges are talking with Alec Murdaugh's defense attorney. So let's take a listen in.
She didn't hear any of these comments made in front of jurors, but the comments made to Ms. McElveen by Ms. Hill were remarkably the same as those related by the jurors. For example, watch him closely, look at his actions, look at his movements. Ms. Hill was saying that to staff and to Ms. McElveen. You agree that's what she testified,
That's
correct?
what she testified to.
That does match almost exactly what these jurors said Ms. Hill told them, correct?
It is.
Okay. So explain to me how we pass go under your theory. How do we accept the fact that Judge Toll maybe didn't mention all these things in her order, but they were supported by an impartial witness, that being the clerk of court from Barnwell?
Well, two things about that. I don't think we can get past what you've recognized, that clerk of court from Barnwell heard nothing going to a juror, or she would have brought that to the court's attention.
But the consistency of the comments or the similar nature of the comments is striking.
Well, and then my second part that I would say about this is that all of this arose months and months and months after trial. And the courts have been, historically reluctant because of that passage in time, because of the fact that jurors vote one day and one day only, and don't have to assent to their verdict and vote him guilty every single day for the rest of their lives. And so I think that passage of time is something that is relevant as well when this case is being talked about incessantly out in the world. And so I think that's something as well that Justice Toll can consider in deciding what actually happened. And the best evidence of what actually happened, and whether or not it is whether you look at what the jurors said about it, not to get to the 606 aspect of it, or if you're objectively standing back and making that factual finding of this is what happened and this is whether or not there's a prejudicial effect. That is why Justice Toll credited those 11 jurors, and that is, I would submit to you, the realm of what this court needs to consider.
I want to ask you a question about this idea that you expressed that this event or these moments when the clerk spoke to the jurors should be considered insignificant when viewed among the entire trial, whether it's a long or short trial. There's no eyewitness, there's no DNA, there's no one thing on the part of the state that you could rely on to show him guilty. So you had to piece together a whole bunch of different stuff. We'll talk about a lot of that stuff in the next phase. But
yes,
but you spent, most of that 6 weeks was you piecing together small pieces of evidence to put together an argument that he did it. Mm-hmm. On his side, now of course he doesn't have the burden and isn't even required to testify. But on his side, whether he's guilty or innocent boils down to one moment, one thing. And that's when Ellick sat up on the stand and said, I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So what I'm wondering is, you're wanting us to consider the statements by the clerk to be insignificant, but those statements go to the only thing that the defendant really had. I mean, the defendant can argue that you didn't piece it all together, but really the defendant's argument boils down to the one thing that the clerk of the court addressed. So we can look at all this context if you want to. But the jurors knew that if Elliott was telling the truth, he's not guilty. If he's lying, he is guilty. And that's where the clerk of court's statements appear to focus. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would say that while I understand that obviously was very important, the defendant taking the stand, it wasn't as simple as just getting up there and saying, I didn't do it, okay? And while there was a long piecing together of all of that, the defendant's testimony was also very long over the course of 2 days. And so I don't think that you can just view the defendant's testimony entirely in isolation of this entire trial. I don't think any analysis has ever said that we're going to ignore the entirety of what went on. Certainly the defendant's testimony was important, but they had been raising all kinds of issues as to lack of motive, as to other possible motives, as to the boat case, as to the cowboys, and all these other things along the way as well. Again, saying this is an epic day, saying it's rare for defendants to testify, those were all statements that everybody in that courtroom knew, everybody in that courthouse knew. So while I hear what you're saying, I think that you can't take out the fact that this was a complex matter with a lot of complex issues.
And, to the extent, though, that you've made some fine points about how we should interpret the statements. Mm-hmm. But if the statements, as in Justice Kitchens was alluding to this, if the statements kind of collectively go to the point you should not believe him, to me it's hard to separate that from the critical issue in the case. But I want to bring up one other thing. You point out in the very beginning of your argument that the trial court here found that Becky Hill was not credible. Now that's a soft statement. That's almost like Richard Nixon or Bill Clinton, whoever it was, said mistakes were made. Sometimes people are not credible because they didn't get a good look at what occurred. Sometimes people are not credible because they don't remember what they saw. Right. Here, if Becky Hill is not credible, it's not because she didn't see it, it's not because she doesn't remember it, it's because she's a liar. Is that right?
I would say that ultimately she said she was not completely credible, and yes, sir.
So there's only one way that Becky Hill can be not credible, and that is that she is a liar.
I think that Justice Toll did not credit parts of her testimony as she looked at everything. Now, she didn't specifically find that she is a liar, but ultimately she didn't credit that testimony. But what I think is important is that neither Justice Toll nor the state relies on Becky Hill. What we rely on is what is most important, and that is the 11. The overwhelming majority of these jurors who sat there and looked Justice Toll in the eye, who judged their demeanor, who judged their credibility, and who ultimately were clear as a bell that there was no sort of improper influence on their verdict. And when you look at these questions and you know, whether or not they went beyond 606B, ultimately they were questions about impartiality. And I think there's a distinction, and Justice Toll made this distinction, that when she phrased these questions, first of all, she had the 4 exact questions that were in green, which I understand the footnote, Justice Hill, when you were on the Court of Appeals, but they were the same 4 questions from the record in State versus Green. So that was a reasonable set of questions to ask. I see I'm out of time, but...
You premise your response that she relied on
All right, right now you are watching the Murdaugh appeals hearing right there. Judges asking kind of about the case and just about that court, that hearing, I should say, when Alec Murdaugh was tried, and he is now serving time for killing his wife and his younger son, Paul. So we're going to take a quick break right here on Live Impact News, but keep it right here on WCNC Plus.
Orders.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. If you're just joining us, we're going to head on back to Columbia, South Carolina, where Alec Murdaugh is appealing his case in front of the South Carolina State Supreme Court. So let's take a listen in.
There is no mention of Parker versus Gladden in this order. Is that still good law?
Yes, sir, and I'm not
okay. So, but you said several times, and I would too if I were you, that 11 jurors said no. My verdict was my verdict.
Right.
So that takes me, I just want you can respond to the Parker versus Gladden part in a moment, but you also need to explain to me about the egg juror. She was removed from this jury on the day deliberations began. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So she was not an alternate. She was a sitting juror.
Correct.
And so she was there and removed minutes before they began talking about the case, began deliberating, correct?
Correct.
And she said in her affidavit, that her ex-husband called her as she was getting on the bus to ride to the courthouse that morning. That upset her because she had a restraining order prohibiting him from contacting her. So she called, or she spoke to Ms. Hill, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Hill told her, according to the egg juror, the Murdaughs probably got to him. You agree that's what she said in her affidavit?
That's what she said in her affidavit.
Okay. And then Ms. Hill asked her if she was leaning one way or the other. And the egg juror said, Mr. Waters' closing was good, but I still have questions. And she said, what kind of questions? And she told Ms. Hill she had questions about the guns. I suppose couldn't find them or there were two used. And then Ms. Hill asked her, what makes you think he's innocent? And she said, the video at the kennels. And then she said, Ms. Hill said, everything the defendant has said has been lies, and you should forget about the guns. They will never be seen again. Are those fleeting comments, or are those egregious?
Your Honor, those would be hard pressed to defend. Yes, sir. Okay. That would be much different from when I'm arguing this record.
And then Ms. Hill told her that the foreperson should just go in and ask for a raise of hands, and this will be over and done with, and everybody needs to be on the same page. So I'm struggling, number one, with why the egg juror wasn't allowed to testify, because that was directly impeaching of Ms. Hill's testimony that she said nothing. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And Judge Toll did say that the egg juror's affidavit is in the record, so we know what she said, Ms. Hill said. So can we consider that affidavit?
Ultimately, I think that Justice Toll, when she made her ruling on, and again, within the discretion of the trial court, as the case law allows her to do, to set the tenor of this inquiry, was only looking at the jurors who actually deliberated. And I think ultimately we got to the alternate because the alternate was there to the end. The difference with the egg lady, and we have to remember this too when we look at the implicit rejection of all of that, is that the egg lady was, and it wasn't like she just got kicked off that morning. That was the product of a couple of days of in-camera hearings that ultimately disclosed that this egg lady juror, who initially said she had not talked about the case, it was ultimately discovered that she had. And all of this stuff about, the Facebook and all that other stuff, Judge Newman was very clear was not the basis for her removal. It was the basis for her removal was her violation of the...
When somebody delivered a refrigerator.
Correct.
And they said she was talking about the case.
That's correct. And that was after she denied it. And then ultimately it came to pass that was not the case. And Judge Newman removed her, frankly, for that misconduct. And so that in and of itself is supported in the record as a basis in the record for Justice Toll's rejection of the credibility of all of that. And this is a person, again, who wrote a book afterwards. And months have gone on when all of this stuff started percolating up. I think that's all relevant to consider as well.
Justice Hill.
Mr. Waters, you talked a lot about the timing of this case and the length of it. Now, the clerk is the public official who jurors have their first contact with from the courthouse and their last. She's the administrative face of the court, essentially. Her name's on the letterhead of the jury summons that the jurors get. She swears in the jurors. She swears in all the witnesses as they're about to testify. She coordinates the juror schedule. She's a liaison between the court and the jury. She's their guide or their Sherpa, so to speak. She's their point person. And she reads the verdict. And she signs their paychecks at the end of the trial. Now, justice is supposed to be blind. We all know that. But court officials, when it comes to the merits of a case, are supposed to be mute. That's the ideal. That's the aspiration. Even our Constitution prohibits the trial judge from commenting on the facts of the case in open court.
Yes, sir.
Now, after a 6-week trial, it's only human nature that these jurors might become bonded to this person. So you've talked about the timing, and I'd like to talk about the source of these comments and where they occurred, which was in the jury room. So can you comment on that?
Yes, sir. So I absolutely hear what you're saying. I think, though, that maybe overstates, and I don't at all distinguish or disagree with you about what a clerk should do and the role that they serve and all the rest of that. But I do think that overstates what Justice Toll was supposed to do and what this court is supposed to review, and that is the specific circumstances that occurred here. And I think that maybe overstates Miss Becky's sort of influence in all of this at this point in time. The jury, actually, the person who handled the jurors day to day was Bill Polk, not Miss Becky. And in fact, as Miss Rhonda testified, Miss Becky got sick, and Miss Rhonda was at the trial more than Miss Becky was. And so, while certainly some of those factors may exist, I think when you look, and this is what I argued before, when you look at what was going on in this courthouse, when you look at the entirety of the specific facts here, when you look at Judge Newman on the stand, who was really, if you want to say the Sherpa, the shepherd of these jurors is Judge Newman, not Becky Hill. When you look at the entirety of this record, I don't think that while you're
You are watching Live Impact News. Right now, we are looking at the Murdaugh appeals case. Right now, they are talking in Columbia in front of the South Carolina Supreme Court. Sometimes we do have some issues when it is a stream, obviously. It's not perfect, and it is streaming out of the courtroom. So it is kind of flickering in and out, I should say. But we're, of course, going to stick with it and keep you updated on the latest and what's going on. For right now, we are going to take a quick break, but keep it right here on WCNC Plus. Watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We're going to head to Columbia, South Carolina, where, of course, that Murdaugh appeals case is happening right now. The defense is taking questions from judges at this moment. So let's take a listen in.
Proper, but neutral in their face and not egregious.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the fine arguments on both sides. At this time, before we go to you can do the reply now? on this issue? I thought we were going to do the reply at the end. What was your understanding, Mr. Barber?
Mr. Chief Justice, if the reply would be at the end of both.
Okay.
That's mine too. So we'll take a, say, 10-minute break. Everybody stretch their legs, restroom break, and then we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. No problem.
Okay, of course, right when we come back, they're taking a break. So we are actually going to go to Washington, D.C. right now, where Pam Bondi is in front of the legislature, in front of a committee right now, answering questions about several different things. One of the things that she is talking about is the Epstein files. So let's take a listen into that.
Other jobs is the creation and maintenance of Article III judges, and I work with the Chief Justice on that, and we're trying to expand the court. But currently, there are only 677 district court judges. They have very full dockets as well. But you create a tremendous amount of judges, particularly immigration judges. You do so in order to save the court that, but adjudicate, as is requirement, each of those people who claim a right to be here in the United States. And that has been going on under Republican and Democratic administrations for years. What's unique about the Trump administration this time is that you and President Trump have managed to reduce the backlog of people seeking that for the first time in decades. You are getting ahead of that tremendous backlog that caused, for better or worse, the release of millions of people with little pieces of paper saying, come back later when we call you, and often to no avail when you call. So I want to congratulate you on that, because it's an accomplishment you might not take credit for, and the other side would never give you credit for. But I hope you can continue to do that and do more. And I say so for a reason, because much of this hearing will be about Minneapolis and other places in which the backlog of criminal aliens, including in my home state of California, people who have hurt other people, people who have victimized their communities, is extensive. And although the overall number through adjudication may be going on, because of places like my home state, California, you're unable to apprehend people that my sheriffs want apprehended. They desperately want to cooperate, and they're prohibited by law. It is this committee's opinion on this side of the aisle that, in fact, you should be given the ability to demand that participation, and that the release of a known criminal not be considered to be acceptable just because a state or city has declared itself a sanctuary. I want you to opine on just one thing that I think has been misunderstood. As I said earlier, you create and maintain those judges that adjudicate these cases. You also support so many that, in fact, have to make decisions as judges. Knowing that this limitation of so few Article III judges are there, please educate those who seem to miss the point that Article I judges, including bankruptcy judges, including immigration judges, including lots of people with the title appropriately judge, do in fact issue documents that look like, act like, and are normally accepted as warrants, as subpoenas, as demands for state officials to stand aside and allow the production of either an individual or documents. Because I think people are missing the point that these ICE retainers and detainers and so on, they act like they're nothing, when in fact in the ordinary course, Madam General, you do in fact have Article I judges constantly putting those out, and they are respected normally.
Thank you, Congressman, for talking about all the great judges. And if I could add one thing to that, we are always recruiting and looking for judges. So please reach out to our office for these judges who are handling all these very important matters. We've even added some JAG officers as immigration judges.
Thank you.
And so we're continuing to do that, but we're always seeking qualified lawyers as well to be part of that. And thank you for highlighting that, Congressman.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Attorney General Bondi, right here. We are joined in this room by some of the thousands of survivors from Jeffrey Epstein's horrific sex trafficking ring. They have shown such incredible courage in speaking out, in demanding accountability to bring the predators and pedophiles to justice. The Epstein Files Transparency Act required your Department of Justice to disclose the perpetrators connected with Epstein's criminal activities and to redact the information of survivors to protect their identities. Let me show you what actually happened. First, in violation of the law, your department has shown a pattern of redacting the names of powerful predators. Here behind me is one example of an email from Epstein to a man whose name was redacted. The email reads, quote, "Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video." Only after members of Congress demanded that we see the unredacted files did the world learn the name of this individual, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, the chairman and CEO of a company that had financial ties to President Trump's business and personal ties to Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon. Second, the survivors were not similarly protected, also in violation of the law. Here is another email titled Epstein Victim List. We have blurred the names of the survivors for their protection, but your Department of Justice initially released this list of 32 survivors' names with only one name redacted, along with numerous files that disclose not only the names, the emails, and the addresses of survivors, but also nude photographs and even the identities of Jane Does who had been protected for decades until your department released their names. Survivors are now telling us that their families are finding out for the first time that they were trafficked by Epstein. In their words, quote, "This release does not provide closure. It feels like a deliberate attempt to intimidate survivors, punish those who came forward, and reinforce the same culture of secrecy that allowed Epstein's crimes to continue for decades." To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Congresswoman, you sat before, Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi,
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific question that I would like you to answer, which is, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the answer. So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't she ask Merrick Garland this?
I am
Twice,
reclaiming
when he
my
sat in my
time, and when
chair.
I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady's
I'm
reclaimed her
not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just
Chairman,
say
I'll
this.
direct it to
What
you.
a massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a
Mr.
question.
Chairman, will you
Chairman.
restore her time? The witness is
I'm not going to get
interrupted.
in the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time.
doing theatrics.
Let me have my time.
The gentlelady from Washington controls the time. The gentlelady has 17 seconds. You can proceed with your final
Thank you.
17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be. Donald Trump made the release of the Epstein files the center of his political campaign because he thought it would benefit him. Then you got into office, Attorney General, claimed to have a client list, only
Regular
to
order.
then say that there was no list. Your deputy, Todd Blanche, met alone with Ghislaine Maxwell and transferred her to a minimum security prison. And now you continue the cover-up. And I wish that you would turn around to the survivors who are standing right behind you and on a human level
Chairman,
apologize
Chair now recognizes the chair.
on what you have done.
The time of the
I
gentlelady
yield
expired.
back.
The gentlelady, you have no time to yield back.
Theatrics.
We appreciate the thought. And I would argue the central issue in the last election, the presidential election, was securing the border. The gentleman from Arizona who knows something about securing the border is up for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for being here today. In 2022, Lafarge, which is a French cement company, pled guilty in U.S. federal court to participating in a criminal conspiracy with ISIS. That conspiracy contributed to the deaths of U.S. service members fighting in Syria during Operation Inherent Resolve. As part of the plea agreement, Lafarge was required to pay more than $775 million into DOJ's asset forfeiture fund. In February 2025, my colleagues and I sent you a letter urging the department to review the petitions for remission submitted by the families of those fallen service members, including several of my constituents. The previous administration ignored these victims and our requests and left their petitions unresolved. My question for you on this particular issue is if you're willing to work to ensure those families that their petitions will be reviewed and brought to a resolution.
Congressman, we are aware of that, and we're committed to doing everything we can to support the victims and work with you. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, appreciate your answer. And now let's go to something that is also pressing that I've been working on for years.
All right, we do have some breaking news as we are coming out of that hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi. If you take a look at our live picture, this is a look at I-77 as you are heading on to I-45. You can see the backup over there on I-77, and that's because there is a crash. One lane is closed right now on the I-45 outer loop in Mecklenburg County, right near I-77. That happened just about 10 minutes ago. The right lane is closed. It's going to be closed past the exit 67 on I-77. So really, really high impact, lots of traffic in that area as we usually do see. I'm also taking a look at Sigler right now, which is a website we use. That's what I'm trying to say. A website that we do use, and you can see already starting lots and lots of backup on the outer loop of I-45. That's right near Nations Ford. So taking a look at that right now, you can see lots of backup on I-77 right near I-485. So we're going to take a quick break, but we will continue to track this accident for you, give you any updates that you do need, and we'll be right back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. You're watching live Impact News right now on WCNC Plus. Let's take a look at that crash that I told you about 2 minutes ago. This is really backing things up on I-77 right near Nations Ford Road. And that exit, you can see that crash causing backup. That crash is located on I-485 on the outer loop. 1 out of 4 lanes closed right now. We do have an update for you. Paramedics are currently on scene, and they tell us there are multiple patients, and they are going to provide more details when it's available. But if you do have to get out on the roadways right now, looks like this is going to go on for a while. So I-485 outer loop near mile marker 67 near I-77, the right lane closed right past exit 67. That's right near Nations Ford Road on I-77. So be aware of that if you do have to get out and travel soon. We are going to go back to Washington, D.C., where the Attorney General Pam Bondi is in front of a committee right now answering and testifying before House leaders. So let's take a listen in.
11th, 2026, and it says it was because of an impasse with the DOD over the use of unmanned military aircraft and not triggered by Mexican cartel drones.
Without objection.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I didn't hear back about the second round of questions. I assume that's not happening. I just want to be able to assure the members, certainly on my side, if not both sides,
that's not a point of order.
No, that every member will get 5 minutes with the witness. Will there be 5 minutes for each?
Yeah, you get 5 minutes. Yeah.
And with the witness. Okay, very good.
Yeah. Okay. And are you up next? Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by acknowledging the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today. I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out. And I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers. I don't know whether this was done out of incompetence or whether it was deliberate and malicious, but either way, it is completely unacceptable. Even more troubling, the DOJ has failed to bring any of these perpetrators to justice. Instead, it has engaged in a relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example. The Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud. And indeed, the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out. Trump could not contain his fury that he expressed to you in a social media post addressed to you by name. I'm sure you've seen it. Quote, I fired him and there is a great case, he wrote to you about Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And obviously, you followed that order. Lindsay Halligan, Trump's former defense lawyer who had never prosecuted a case in her life, was installed to replace Mr. Siebert, and it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Ms. James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which a court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role. But your department was undeterred, and not once, but twice, it tried to indict Attorney General James in separate courts. Both grand juries rejected you and refused to indict her. It is practically unheard of for a grand jury to refuse an indictment. In 2016, it happened in just 6 cases out of over 150,000 offenses. And you had it happen twice in the same week, in 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports that you are continuing to investigate her. The amount of resources that have gone into targeting Attorney General James, months of investigations, multiple failed indictments, is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you were going after her simply because she held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her.
And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting. From Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve to James Comey, numerous Democratic members of Congress, John Brennan, Jack Smith, Democratic officials in Minnesota, Chris Krebs, Miles Taylors, and more. And those are just the ones we know about. In contrast to these politically motivated investigations, grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the.
All right. This is Attorney General Pam Bondi. She's testifying before House leaders, answering questions. Looks like it is starting to become a little bit heated. And so we will continue to watch that. We also want to let you know of some breaking news. If you are just joining us, this is on I-77. You can see all of that traffic is backed up right now. That's because we are tracking a crash on I-45 on the outer loop right near Nations Ford Road. So we are watching that. We do know that there are multiple patients, I should say, as medic is there trying to assess the situation. So we are going to continue to watch that. That will be on our 11 o'clock news that will continue to stream right here on WCNC Plus. And we will also continue to watch the Murdoch appeals case as the defense is going in front of the South Carolina Supreme Court. That's going to be on our secondary channel. So if you do not want to miss that, that will be on our secondary streaming channel. You can find it right in our WCNC app. You just get out of this one and it'll be right there next to this. So yeah, we are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, you'll see Nick Sturtevant and Jane Monreal. They will be anchoring the 11 o'clock news with more updates on this breaking news and this crash on I-45.